Okay, so we have our trial data file open, and I'm going to describe a few of the features of Excel here for you. We've got this counting total of columns along the top, and they're lettered off much like the Battleship game. And then they're numbered off in rows along the sides. We have we have four different tabs along the bottom. These are tabs that may contain other information. These will be useful pieces of information for us later. We'll go to our data entry tab, and I would just like to enter our name into cell C4. So to do that, there's a couple of things I can do. But first, I'm going to click on cell C4. Once I have cell C4 highlighted, I can either just start typing my name, or I can click in the entry tab up at the top and start typing my name. Now, the reason why the entry tab might be more useful is because once something has already been typed, if I start typing over top of it, I run into a problem of it deletes it. But if I have it highlighted in the entry tab, I can go back and very quickly edit that piece so that way I have my name there. So that's how we can enter a single thing in two different spots, either by starting to type in a box or by typing in an entry tab. Now, interestingly enough, when I type in text, it shows up on the left-hand side of the cell. When I type in numbers, they show up on the right-hand side of the cell. It's an interesting way to show that you have a number instead of a piece of text. If I type in a number with a comma, like en français, it will show up on the left-hand side. If I type a number with a decimal, it will show up on the right-hand side. So we just can differentiate between numbers and text based off of the way that they're seen in a particular cell. So that's how we can enter data. We can also enter data by having it repeat a particular pattern. I'm going to start by typing the numbers 0, 1, 2, and 3. Now that I have a few numbers, suppose I wanted to have those numbers repeat all the way down. Well, I don't think I want to type every single one of those numbers. What I'm going to do is I'm going to highlight the whole set. So I'll do that by clicking in cell C6, holding down the click, and highlighting up to cell C9. You can see that the first cell is in white. It still is selected, it's just the first one that I've selected. The rest of the cells have been grayed out. Now I have this region selected and it's highlighted by that boundary. It's also indicated on the row section and on the column section, and on the row section where my highlighted portion is. Now, I can click on the edge and you'll see it turns it into kind of a Mickey Mouse hand, and I can drag that into different spots. And so I can drag it around, and then I'll drag the whole selection without changing it. I'll drag it back to where it was. The other thing I can do is I can click on this little fill tab. Now the fill tab is quite important because it'll actually do a lot of automation for us. The cursor right now is a white cross, but as I go over the fill tab, the cursor changes to a black cross. That lets me know that I'm on the fill tab. If I now click on that and hold down my click, I can stretch and you'll see it starts filling in the rest of the numbers. It follows the pattern. So I can fill in the numbers from 1 to 20. 0 to 20. And it did that automatically without me having to type it. Now it's fairly intuitive. So I had 0, 1, 2, and 3 there. What if I typed 0 and 0.1? And I tried to do the same process. So I highlight it and I start scrolling down. You'll see it calculated the first difference between those 2 points, and it stretches all those numbers all the way down. So that is how we can use the fill tab to help us enter data. Now, we can fill data down. We can also fill data across. So suppose I had these 2 cells highlighted. So I've started by clicking in cell C7 and across to cell D7. As I fill across, you may notice it's doing a pattern, but it's maybe not doing the pattern you would expect. So some of you might say, well, it should divide by 10 because 1 and 0.1 are divided by 10. But it's actually just doing the first difference again as it fills across. So if it's not given very much information, it'll do the first difference and fill. So I've entered in some data and I've played around with it a little bit, and I don't want that last thing. So I can click the undo button, which is right here. And I click the undo button and that part goes. If I don't want to click the undo button on a Mac, I can always use Command Z. And on a PC, I can always use Control Z. So that's how we can do some basic data entry. Now, one more bit of data entry that's kind of important is being able to enter in a function. So functions are always indicated by an equal sign. So we're going to go into cell E6, and I'd like to be able to just add up these two columns. So 0 plus 0 is 0. That's easy enough. 1 plus 1 is 1.1. 2 plus 0.2 is 2.2. But this is going to get tedious for me to type. Now, of course, you're thinking, well, you can't just fill that entire thing down. But what if these numbers weren't exactly the numbers that we had expected? What if they were numbers that were just kind of put at random? And I wanted to be able to add up all of these numbers and make sure that what I had was column C plus column D. Now, the fill tab would not work the way that I expect it to anymore, because 0 and 1.1 and 2.2, using the fill tab, it's not going to intuitively see that I'm adding C and D. Instead, it's going to go by that pattern of 0, 1.1 all the way down. And we know that 20 plus 21 is certainly not 22. So we need a different strategy. And that different strategy is done using a formula. So we'll click equals to bring up our formulas. Now, we want to add everything in this cell and everything in this cell. So we click the first cell, and it'll bring up its name. So this is now saying, take C6. That's the content in cell C6. And it's highlighted in blue, and the text of the cell is in blue as well. And we want it to add them, so we'll use the plus sign to indicate addition. Now we want to add to that cell D6. Yes, we know that 0 plus 0 is 0. So when I hit enter on this particular data entry, you'll see that it just replaces equals C6 plus D6 with the value that that equals, 0. But something strange happens. Now I can take the fill tab from here, and it will bring that C6 D6 reference, and it will bring that down. So it was 6 and 6, it became 7 and 7. Now 8 and 8, now 9 and 9. And I get the result that I want. 3 plus 4 is 7. 20 plus 21 is 41. A lot of formulas can be accessed by using the equal sign. So this equal sign is going to give us a ton of features and access to a ton of features that are going to be useful while we're processing large sets of data. So that's a pretty good intro to some of the key features, how to type into something, how to select or name a particular cell, how to use the fill tab, and also how to use a formula.